forward before I forget, even though I'm not showing anything, but I'll show my screen. And hold on, let's do that. That's one. Let's go ahead here. Let's go to this thing. Oops. Mine's always a convoluted thing here. Okay. So, does anybody have any questions in regard to this? I see a lot of you left stuff, which was great because I thought we would go over it. I'm going to leave the microphone on for now because I'll let you guys just give a quick, just a quick summary of like, we'll show the pictures and you can decide why you do it, why you chose that particular thing. Did anybody have any problems with finding any photo sites? I mean, you obviously didn't have to purchase these. Um, that would be a totally different story. So, hold on one second. But there we go. And I'm just going to go in the order of who's here. And like I said, you don't have to speak long, just like, what you were starting to think about, maybe just some of your thought processes, just so we could get some interaction with each other. And then we've got plenty to go over today. So we'll start here. And I don't think you had links, so here we go. So we'll start with Tony. That was the first one you had, I believe, right?
Yep, that's it.
All right. I didn't eat dinner. I don't know about you guys, but this is probably going to make me really, really hungry, this class today, but that's okay. Although
So you
I'm not a fan of pie. So anyway, go ahead.
so you just kind of want me to explain why I chose them?
Yeah, what did you like about, like, what out of, because there's so many pictures out there, right? So
Right.
did you have like something in mind first?
Well, I had nothing in mind, honestly. I looked at a couple, I guess, pictures that people before me posted, and I thought they had really good ideas. So I try to kind of go a little different from what others had, just to kind of broaden the pictures. For the first one, I chose blueberry with the pop of color with the napkin right there. Just because it screams all American to me, as well as I really just like the colors, to be honest. And
Mhm.
I wasn't really a huge fan of showing the whole pie, so
I agree.
that's particularly why I chose this picture.
Yeah, very, very good point with that because the idea of that selling, the whole pie. Um, I always like that too. I kind of like the idea of hinting at. I think we've, hopefully you've noticed that if you look at stuff out there, that happens a lot. I mean, it's not that we don't always show it, but
Yeah, I
I
just
think
feel like consumers genuinely get what you're going for, and it just makes it look a little more artsy than just
mhm,
showing them whole pie.
great. And then you had that one as well.
And this one kind of correlates with the assignment of choosing colors for your bakery. I was kind of going for a warm chocolate kind of color with a berry type of tint to it to accent the color. And I know this isn't necessarily a pie, it's more of a tart, but I'm sure, for what we're going with, it's a bakery. I'm sure it could produce tarts. I just really like the picture and the colors and the warmth of it, especially for fall as well. And these were kind of the color schemes I was going off of if I had to come up with a brand.
Great. Yeah, I noticed that brown was something that a lot of people picked because of that whole homey kind of feel, which was great.
Right.
Thank you. All right,
Welcome.
remove this, and we'll go with here, and I will click on this next one. Oh, and this one is, now that I just clicked on it, and I just didn't see.
It's me.
Okay, good. Sorry, I wasn't prepared for that,
It's okay.
actually.
um, I actually did the blueberry pie too. I didn't even know Tony had done it too.
No, that's great.
Um,
That's fine.
I was just trying to think of different pies, and I thought of blueberry pies. Um, my main thing here was looking for something because the scenario had said that mother had taken pictures, but they couldn't be used in the end. So I was going for something that kind of had an artsy look to it, but at the same time maybe was an image that could be taken like in your bakery.
Right.
So not something too extravagant.
Yeah, very good thought. So it's kind of thing that
Um,
you need to.
kind of going for that whole homemade appeal. And so I saw this one, and it looks like something you could probably set up in your kitchen. Or
Oh yeah, very cool. Yeah, it'd be interesting. Let's see how many of these. Maybe we should keep a tally. So okay, so far we have two blueberry. Let's see. Let's see who wins. Thank you for that. Let's go back here. Go through. And that's also good. Let's go see your other one. And it's pretty obvious what you said for that one. You actually said for the holidays, right?
yeah, just because it's nearing fall, and the pie I always think about in fall are pumpkin pies. So if it was maybe a an image that was going out at a certain time of year, I would probably include a pumpkin pie just because that's what everybody thinks of, that or pecan pie.
I like it.
Uh,
And what I like about this one is I like that this one has balance with the plate and the fork actually in the background.
yeah, that's what I really liked about this image. And I mean, there were a whole bunch of different pumpkin pie images to choose from. Um, I was kind of looking for one that had a whole pie, but then I saw this one and I enjoyed the balance and kind of the overall simplicity.
3:45 forward. I
Great.
didn't hear that at all.
Oh,
Oh, I'm sorry, do I need to say that again?
no, no,
That's
no,
fine.
we're good. Somebody else
Yeah, you
just
go
has,
for it.
I can just hear the
At first,
sounds of
I
somebody
was
else.
about to bed.
If you guys could
That's
mute your
weird.
mics till we talk, that would be great. Or I can mute him and then I'll just let you guys talk.
Yeah, I know. And I was like, that's one thing.
Wait, let's see. We can see you.
And they don't care.
All right, I'll mute him because otherwise we might overhear some conversation right now. Okay, everybody's muted right now, but I will turn on whoever is next here. So let's just go back and back. Easiest thing to do. All right, so Carrie, you're going to be up next. This time I'll pay attention. And let me undo your sound. Hold on a second. Unmute. You have been unmuted, Carrie. Let's go through.
Okay, great.
All right, cool. Yay.
And
Now we
I
have,
chose this one just kind of sticking to I had originally said with the colors, kind of like the red and white blue for All American. And then I just
mhm.
thought this one looked with it's apple pie and you've got an apple there that's the ingredients and then also the rolling pin. So it just kind of made me think of like a mom and apple pie.
That's great. Just kind of curiosity, how many pictures did you happen to look through before you got, like this one? Did you go through like a lot?
I
Or
went
was that
through a
like a
couple of the
fairly
different
easy?
photo websites, so I'm sure hundreds.
Yeah, because I was just curious about that. Because like today, I was looking for or already looking ahead, looking to because I'm working on a piece for the holidays, the you know Christmas holidays, already
Right.
past Halloween, and I cannot even begin to tell you how long I spent looking for a snowman. Because yes, there are a lot of good snowman pictures, but I just could not find the right one that I wanted. So I was just curious.
Well, and I wanted the red and white checkered tablecloth, so that kind of proved, like I could find it, but I wanted it with an apple pie, and then
Right.
just finding the right one.
Gotcha.
And
Great.
yes, I did do three because I was kind of torn between the second two.
Gotcha. So let me see. What happened to it? How come I not going? There we go. So this is great. We get to see a couple of them that you did. All right, that's cool. I like that.
And that one, obvious, all American with an American flag.
Yep, and a little bit more abstract. So that's what's kind of fun about that one.
Right.
And there goes that. And that's
And
good.
I liked that one because of the white space, because you could put it somewhere and it not matter where it's at on a page or on a poster or it's
Hmm.
just would fit in there and still looks like homemade all American pie.
Yeah, actually, when I look at that, what I think of is that somewhere, and I'll show you a layout that I did to kind of exemplify some of the stuff that we've been talking about later. And the idea of it as like a second image, somewhere else in the layout,
Right.
as another accent. It would be really cool for that. And we can, have the text wrap around it. I can see that happening with that picture. So good choices.
Thank
Yay.
you.
All right. Sorry, I'm going to mute you again, and we're going to go on to the next person. And Jordan, you're going to be up. And hold on, Jordan. Sorry, I can't do both. I'm just obviously I cannot walk and chew gum at the same time. And
Unmute yourself.
there you
Yay.
are. Yay.
Okay, well, I, like you, search through pictures for hours. So these are actually not my favorite, but I mean, I can work on a flyer for 5 hours and easily search pictures for 10. So it's the bane of my existence. I
Yep.
chose a couple of pictures. This one, I just wanted one in particular that could be easily used that in any. I was thinking more for a logo shot in this one that wasn't too overpowering in color scheme or anything. So that's more what I was going for here, was something that could easily be used if you wanted an actual photo in your logo, which I'm not sure that you would, but if you did. So something generic, but
Yeah,
still looked homemade.
very cool. And yeah, it's true. It is generic. That's also good about it. Can't really tell what kind of pie it is. Does it say what kind of pie it is? Let's see. Oh, it does say apple pie.
Mm,
Ah, it does.
okay, there you go.
I wouldn't have known that. But I'm glad to hear that I'm not the only one who's crazy when it comes to looking for these things. All right. Not that I'm calling you crazy, or although I guess I just did.
No, crazy, very crazy, yes.
Let's see. Let's go back because I think you might have another one, right? There we go. Is that the same one? Sorry, there were two. Yeah. Ooh. Oh, look at
And
this.
then,
Has anybody else had this experience
uh,
happen? Yeah. You get a certain amount of like ones for like, just free looking, and then they're like want you to sign up. But there's a lot of places who do that. And I understand that. So.
and then for this one, I just wanted to do, I wanted a nice, I was looking for just a good slice of a piece of pie. I just wasn't finding the exact one I wanted, but I definitely wanted something that had a little bit of a color in it. And I was actually trying to go with the color scheme. I was actually trying to keep something in mind with the color scheme of the branding colors from the original homework from last week, just trying to keep something
Yeah,
in mind with that. So that's why I was choosing this one. It had that same temperature color scheme, and I just kind of liked the minimalist look of this one with the fruit kind of in the background.
absolutely.
A little different.
Good deal. All right. So that's it. You had the two, right? So, yep.
Yep, that's it.
Good job too. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I'll turn you off then. And Kate, you're up next. So I'll unmute you first and then we'll click on it. So I remember.
Good.
And no problem. If they don't link, I can do it here. Okay. Ooh.
All right, so I chose this picture because I thought it looked very clean and classic. And I don't know if any of you have been to Emporium Pies, but all the girls there wear aprons, and it kind of looks like the person holding the pie is wearing an apron. I just kind of liked how clean and simple this picture looked.
Yes, I agree. And it's just the pie definitely has prominence in this, I would definitely say.
Right.
It's very cool. Let me
Yeah.
get the other one. Mm.
And then I chose this one because it's actually the same type of pie, and I
Mhm.
kind of like the consistency if they had like a signature pie or if they were on the same page showing different shots of the same product. So I liked how it kind of stayed with the consistency of being clean and similar color scheme and things like that.
I agree. Very cool.
Mhm.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Let's switch back over here. Okay. Samantha, you are next. Hold on. All right. You have been unmuted, Samantha. Let's get your stuff up here. Good. Just get rid of this. It's annoying me. Okay. Oh, bless you.
Thanks.
You have a cold?
Uh, yeah,
Oh, terrible time of
just a
year.
little
Change of
bit.
weather. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I chose this one um kind of because the colors that I chose in the last assignment kind of correlate with this. So I wanted to something to show the pink and the crust and something really simple and something like this is their whole pie kind of concept
Mm-hmm.
for this one. Um, this one was, I don't know.
No, that's great. And I like the way you guys are thinking about, tying it into the colors that you already have. It's a good way to think because hopefully that's what we're getting to, this evolution of this product, this project.
Mhm.
So let me do the other one and give you quick because I don't want to torture you.
It's
So
okay.
I hope it's not too hard for you to talk.
No, it's fine.
Okay, good.
I'm just stuffed out.
It's miserable though.
Yeah, yeah.
Ooh.
And this one, this was the my favorite one out of all of
Mm-hmm.
the photos that I chose because it just shows the freshness of the pies and the company is about handmade pies, homemade pies. So like the blueberries and the cinnamon and the flour and the sugar, like all kind of tie that in and kind of what's the kind of give you that. Shh, Nola, my dog. I'm sorry, she barks. Um, but it kind of it gives you that feeling of everything so fresh and it's very balanced, I think, and 'cause you have
What
a
I like
lot in
is
the
it makes it think
foreground.
it looks like you can sense the sweetness, you know what I mean? Also
Yes.
like the sugar. I love the idea of that. That just like you could taste this photo. It's very, yeah, I can totally understand
Hmm.
why you picked that too. And
Hmm.
I think Blueberry's winning so far, isn't it, guys? I think so,
Yeah.
right? All right, let's see. Well, thank you. Hope you feel better.
Thanks.
I'll mute you again. And we'll go back here. All right. All right, John, you have been unmuted. So let me go ahead and get it. I can see here it is. Okay. Are we copy the other one?
Hi.
Hi,
I'm unmuted.
you are
Uh,
unmuted. Floor is
right,
yours.
right. Yeah, I didn't. Let's see. This one. This is a pumpkin pie, I believe. It's
Mm-hmm.
just it just whatever the shape of it and the fruit in the background just seemed like a seasonal image, and I think I went with both of those. That's probably the only pie I like. Not much more to it than that, other than the I like the orange and the kind of blue complements in the background.
I agree. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, you know, it looks like a fine pie.
Yeah, it adds a lot more interest to it, to the slice of pie too, the way
Well, it's
the
kind of
baker did.
neutral in the where the colors. Yeah, the other items are the ones kind of doing the work for that, and so I kind of wanted a neutral pie itself, and so that's just brown and plain,
Still good.
right?
Good color. All right, let's see your other one. Ah,
Probably the same one. Yeah, that's
yeah.
I liked it because the whipped cream kind of looked like a mohawk,
Yeah,
and
it does. Yeah.
I figured I should have the same pie if it was the same brand, so I didn't want to, I don't know a heck of a lot about pie, but it seemed like a decent pie. This one's, I think, just the triangle shape, kind of wedged into a corner, was a little bit more interesting, an angle to have it, but not much more than that. But
Yeah. Yeah. Good.
all right.
Good. Also good choices. Thank you. All right. Let's go back here. Preview. Oh, actually, she's not here, so I knew that. So we're going to switch over to Jonathan. I'm unmuting you. Copy. All right, I think Pumpkin's starting to win now. All right, it's all yours. Here we go.
Okay, so I picked this picture because I like that it has a slice of pie featured as well as you can see the whole pie in the background. And also with the pumpkin there, it's got the orange kind of element like I suggested for the would be one of the colors for like the new logo from the last assignment.
Right.
And really it was just I was kind of overwhelmed looking through all the pictures. So what ended up being like the deciding factor was I just looked through them all really fast, and the ones that caught my eye and looked like the most appetizing, I
That's half
those
the battle. That's half the battle right there.
yeah.
Because if it's going to be appealing to you, I'm sure it's going to be appealing to a lot of other people. Because that's just what you got to think about. So, right.
Mhm.
And it definitely is. It's a good shot. And you have another one, right? Let me guess.
Yeah.
I'm glad it took you a while as well.
And this one, kind of the same thing. I liked how it featured
Mhm.
like the single slice, so you can see the inside of the pie as well as the whole pie in the background. It's actually from the same contributor. So when I found his catalog, I found that I liked a few of the different ones there, and they also just really look excuse me, homemade to me. So I thought that kind of goes along with the brand and what they're trying to portray.
Yeah, I think that's good. I like it. This is the account. Shutterstock is what I use at work. So I like them. Go through. All right, thank you. Let me go on. You've been muted, and now we will go to just a few more. So, Natalie, let me find you. All right, Natalie, you've been unmuted. And let's see. Go ahead.
Hello?
Hi.
Can you hear me?
I
Okay,
can.
sorry, I think I muted it on my own too.
Oh, okay. I know it's hard to get used to. Oh,
So for both images actually, I was thinking of the whole pie company name, so I wanted to show angles of whole pies for both of them. And I've really wanted to stick with more of a warm color scheme, so I chose images that had, really rich browns and oranges. So I just loved how this one looked. But, at the same time, like oranges and browns, have that feeling of warmth and homemade. But I also wanted it to look, like a professional baking company at the same time. So this image really stuck out to me for that reason.
yeah, I like the flower kind of thing happening on the pie there.
Yeah, it was really pretty, and I saw that and I just wanted to eat it immediately. So,
Yeah. Again, like I said, good instinct to do that. So let's see your other one, which looks like pumpkin pie. Did you find like this was like, did you prefer iStock? Because they have a pretty great,
yeah, it was actually the first one I looked at, and then I looked at a few more, but I was more impressed with these photos. Um, for the pumpkin pie, I wanted to keep it in that same color scheme with the warm browns and the oranges, and still, looking homemade but professional as well. And at the time, is pumpkin season on my mind, so that's why I picked pumpkin pie.
absolutely. And all good choices because you would be wanting to do that for fall. And especially this time of year, right around before Halloween and it just starting. Everybody has this association with it, I think. I mean, obviously, some people like pumpkin pie and some people don't, but it's going to be that way for every single one of these pies. So, but I think it would like you would tend to go with the one that you like. Because, like for me, I wouldn't pick blueberry because I don't like blueberry. But that doesn't mean that I don't think the choice is good. I'm just saying it's interesting because I think part of that works psychologically. So, thank you. I'm going to mute you now. And I believe we just have one more on here. Griselda, you here to make sure? Yes, I see you. Okay.
Okay, I put the numbers for my photos, so you're gonna have to go to the actual website and enter them in,
Yeah. Oh, okay.
making it complicated for you.
Oh, okay. So like go to this site and then we'll put the, yeah,
The numbers in. Mhm.
not a problem. Think stock. Are some of these free? Actually free images or
I'm not sure. This is the one
why
we
do I
use at
think
work, so it was my go-to pretty much.
is it your go-to?
Hmm.
Okay, so let's see.
Okay, the reason I picked this photo, I love the detail on there, and in the case, I mean, in the glassware that it's cooked, so it kind of hints at homemade and has
Mm-hmm.
that warm feeling. So I just really like the detail and that aspect of it.
I agree. Nice. Oh, an apple and cherry. That's our first apple and cherry. Okay, okay. Just joking. Let's see. Okay.
And then the reason I picked this was I love the detail of the pie and it crumbling, and um, I don't know, it just made me want to eat it instantly. But I just really love the detail on that as well.
I agree. It's, the again, it's like it's interesting how these little extra effects like the fork in the right place or, the way where it's placed, the
Mm.
way the dishes are placed. It's all like all part of this whole thing. What was I going to ask about that? Did you, I'm sure you've noticed through all of these, they all have that watermark, just in case, maybe it goes through it. So you would still be able to right click on this thing. Well, usually you are. Let's see, maybe not this one. Well, that's interesting. I can actually right click on it. Well, maybe it's me. Sorry. Yeah, and see, you can actually copy the image still or save image as, but it's going to have that watermark on it, and it's going to be very, very low quality. So that's how
Mm-hmm.
they hopefully, get around, like, you're not supposed to just download this image. You're supposed to pay for them or sign up or whatever you have to do, because some of the free ones you still have some things that do with it. Well, thank you. I'm going to mute you now. Well, thanks, guys. I hope that was good. Like, at least you got to hear some of each other instead of just listening to me all night. Not that, I don't have a lot to cover, but I'm sure going through that. But hopefully this will be somewhat fun. Let me go ahead and just put on this first image. I thought this was kind of interesting from the book. If anybody did the reading, this is actually from the images. I don't usually take anything from that book, but there are definitely some great visuals in there. That's, if nothing else, it goes through it. So that was the only reason this put on here, and I find that corn particularly creepy, just really, really weird. But you could read more about it in the book if you want to know through that. And it's on that it's in the chapter on images. So don't worry if you haven't read it yet. I mean, obviously there's still always time for that too. So all right. So today, what we're going to do is I'm going to go over just a little bit more about images. Going to go over about resolution and file formats, and then I'm going to go over some of the building blocks of design, and then hopefully we can get through some of maybe building an ad together in terms of, I'm not sure how far we'll get into the process, but in terms of like why I'll show you how I kind of use Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, and what I do for each of those things, and we'll do like a before and after thing too, so you can see like different ways that you can actually do it, design an ad. So first off, we got to talk about resolution, and it's the amount of information or pixels contained in an image. And first off, though, what is a pixel? Because I really don't want to assume like anybody knows. Like there's a lot of things that people don't know and sometimes don't even like to admit that they don't know. So we're just going through the whole basics. So it seems rudimentary, but to many the confusion begins here. Pixel actually stands for picture element, and it's the smallest physical element of a digital displaying device that the eye can discern. So zoom in close to the photo on your computer screen. Like when you do that, just open up a photo and just zoom in on it. And you'll see rows and rows of tiny little squares. And we can go ahead and do that, get a chance in Photoshop. And as such, they are the smallest addressable unit of a digital image. The squares in this, let's go through another one. Let's go to the image and we can see it. It's measured in dots per inch. Let me go over that first. Or PPI, and what the difference is, because these are literally the number of dots or pixels that can be placed side by side in a line 1 inch long. The more dots or pixels, the better the clarity and the higher the resolution of the image. And that's because they'll be closer together. If you have like gaps between like the dots, that's where you start getting like these pixelated, fuzzy kind of images. The basic difference is, and let's see, show you that. So there's DPI, and the image on the right actually shows you the actual dots that are used to print a photograph on a printing press. So this is like a blown up version of the woman on the left-hand side there, and you can just see that there's the whole pixelation thing there. That's if you've ever heard the term pixelated, that's what it's referring to. All those little tiny squares that make up the image. So let me go ahead and show that. So pixels per inch, or PPI, is a measure of the number of pixels displayed in an image. And the PPI is the display resolution, not the image resolution. And this is here. So the squares in this image represent pixels. And you would just see something like this again, like if you zoomed in very close to a fairly low pixel image. So something, and that would be like 72 pixels. And again, we'll go into Photoshop so we can physically see what this is. And by the way, this image is actually from Creative Commons, which I mentioned last week. So it's one of those free images that's available for use. Although aside from like what I'm using this for demonstration purposes, I'm not exactly sure where you would, come across needing this. But you know what? That's okay. Works for this. So, like I said, the two terms that people confuse and use interchangeably are PPI and DPI. And they're not, they're not actually interchangeable, but they seem to be used that way. And if you feel lost about these terms, you're not alone, because even software manufacturers have used these two terms synonymously. And if you're a designer, though, your primary concern is going to be PPI. So anyway, back to pixels. Pixels are the physical things of a fixed size, albeit not a standard one. Different devices have pixels of different shapes and sizes, and the smallest known being a microscopic 11 and a quarter. And you can look this up. I think it's called an Anyway, hence that's how you get the number of pixels per inch. That's what it refers to. PPI on your screen is a fixed quantity, not something you can adjust by typing in a new number somewhere. Most of LCD monitors are in the neighborhood of 67 to 130 PPI. So what does this mean, really? Why am I going on in this? Actually, if you're only going to look at an image on a screen, its PPI actually does not matter, because the PPI of your monitor is already fixed. So basically, next time someone tells you to upload images to a website at 72 PPI because that is web resolution, you can tell them that they have simply added a ridiculous extra step, because unless they're concerned with visitors taking the image from the websites and then printing them, because if you did right click on a higher resolution image, you probably could actually copy it and use it for printing. But unless you're doing that, it's a 72p PPI image and a 3000 PPI image will appear exactly the same on screen. You're not going to see a difference on screen. It's when it comes to print, which is what DPI comes in, that it actually matters. So the setting for the PPI really only matters for printing. And that's the transfer of a digital image onto a non-digital surface. But wait, you say we're talking pixels per inch, but printing paper doesn't have pixels. Yep, it's confusing. In the printing process, all the physical pixels that compose the image on screen are translated into little squares of different hues on paper. And obviously there are not pixels in the sense of a light emitting mechanical device, but pixels in the more abstract sense of a square picture element. And I probably just confused the heck out of you even more. But just let's think of it, just sum it up by saying that PPI is like on screen, but it will matter what it is, the resolution of something when it is printed. And I will show you. We can look at and save a picture at different resolutions, so you can get the sense of what I'm talking about. And hopefully, maybe I have it summed up here. So PPI is the amount of information or pixels contained in an image. And there you go. So literally the number of dots or pixels that can be placed side by side in a line 1 inch long. The more dots or pixels, the better the clarity, the higher the resolution of the image. So here's the thing, how, the image is probably low resolution if the place or in certain images is so small you have to enlarge it. The image file size is smaller than 500 kilobytes, so this just gives you some idea. It's probably high resolution if you place an image and it's so small you have to enlarge it, and it's at least 1 megabyte. And actually, it's the opposite. So I apologize for the confusion on that. It's so large that you have to reduce it. So that's the difference in that if it's high resolution. And that's really what if you don't have Photoshop. So we'll go into this too before we go into the other things. The raster versus vector, two terms that you also need to know in the graphic design world. And technically, there we go. So a raster graphic is an image made of hundreds or thousands or millions of tiny squares of color information. And again, that's why I started with the first one to hopefully help you get along to this one. So pixel images. Raster graphic is an image made of hundreds. And most common type of raster graphic, photograph. And the most popular program designers use to create and edit raster files, Adobe Photoshop. So what are the pros and cons? The pros for raster: rich detail, precise editing. All of those individual pixels of color information can also be modified one by one. So if you're a true perfectionist, which I can tell a lot of you already are, the level of editing and customization available in the raster image is almost limited, limitless. And of course, also it's, sometimes you obviously want a real photograph and a real product. I mean, we could probably do some nice drawings of the pies and things like that, but it's not going to have that same visual impact for I think the pie company, because that one it's all about the pies itself. So we would need the visuals of that, I think, to be really effective. We can use an illustration here and there for an extra effect, but now the cons, of course, to this is it's blurry when enlarged. The biggest downfall to raster images is that they become pixelated, grainy when enlarged. So here's the deal, like when a raster image, like say of a 1 inch by 1 inch square at 300 dpi, will have 300 individual pieces of information, and a vector image will only contain like 4 points, so one for like each corner. Computer uses math to connect the dots and fill in all of the missing information. So like I was trying to say, a vector graphic actually uses math to draw shapes using points, lines, and curves. The most common types of vector graphics: fonts, logos, usually that, and the preferred program for editing vector graphics, Adobe Illustrator. And it has pretty much these three file formats, whereas we're going to go over the ones for the raster formats, and there's several more. And this is all about how you save the document, actually, and why you do it. You would usually use like An AI file is a native Adobe Illustrator file, so usually you would keep that as your original and work in it. If you're going to place it into something like an InDesign document, you would save it as an EPS. If you um, create a whole document of any sort going through, you can always save it as a PDF. And actually, if you ever have a PDF and you want to try opening it up and taking it apart, sometimes the native um, the native program, software program for Adobe for a PDF is actually Illustrator. But if you don't have, like, if the document that you're opening up in Illustrator, if you open up a PDF in it, you'll have some issues if you don't have the fonts. And it'll be just all over the place. It probably won't look perfect by any means. So, and there are a couple other things I can show you too, though, about sometimes getting images out of a PDF. So let's go over some of that for that. So what are the pros of this? Infinitely scalable through the wonders of math, which I don't claim to understand. Vector files can be scaled up or down as much as you want without losing any image quality, whereas a raster image must guess the colors of mixing pixels when sizing up. That's why you don't want to take a smaller photograph and make it larger. It doesn't work. You're going to lose something. A vector image simply uses the original mathematical equation to create a consistent shape every time. Smaller file size. A vector file needs only 4 points of data, like I was saying before, to recreate a square versus 300 individual pixels for a raster image. So for simple graphics like geometric shapes or typography, this means a much smaller file size and faster processing speed. And that comes in when you're designing for the web. You don't want some image that's going to hold up your website from loading. Editability. Unlike popular raster-based formats such as a JPEG or a PNG, vector files are not flattened. So when you open them back up in a program such as Adobe Illustrator, so you don't have to actually save an Adobe Illustrator file and an EPS. If you wanted just the EPS, it's really going to be the same exact information the way it's laid out. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. We'll go in there when we go into Illustrator. Anyway, when you open them up, back up in Illustrator, all the original shapes exist separately on different layers. In a way, layers. They're not, you won't actually see designated layers as Photoshop, which is a program of that, but you'd be able to access each and every individual thing that you created. So limited details. Um, they're created like from simple points and lines. So this means it can handle certain styling effects like blurring or drop shadow that are available with raster images. Now you can actually do Photoshop effects in Illustrator, but it's not going to be, just to make it even more confusing, it won't be, once you use that, it's no longer a vector image. Now you've made it, your Illustrator file, a raster image because you're using the Photoshop effects like drop shadow. And I don't know if anybody's ever done this, but I can show you this. If you save one with that drop shadow and bring it in, you'll just see like a white circle around your drop shadow. It's really not not a great effect. So that's what happens there. So now we'll talk about, there are a lot of different choices within Photoshop. And we'll open that up and give it a look as well. So we'll just go through these digital file formats, then we'll switch over a bit. Or I might even wait till we get to shapes for Illustrator. So we'll see. So when we save for the web, because that's what ends up happening. In Photoshop, you do have a feature, and I'll show you that, where we save for web. And we're concerned with our images being the smallest file size possible without losing quality. So to help accomplish this, we want the best lossless compression. So a lossless compression algorithm discards no information. It looks for more efficient ways to represent an image while making no compromises in accuracy. A lossless algorithm might, for example, look for a recurring pattern in the file and replace each occurrence with a short abbreviation, and that's how it helps cut down on the file size. So in contrast, a lossy algorithm might store color information at a lower resolution than the image itself, since the eye is not so sensitive to changes in color of a small distance. So that's what it kind of does there. So lossy algorithms accept some degradation in the image in order to achieve smaller file size. Those of us perfectionists are not going to love that. So here's a variety of things. And by the way, in one of the classes, I think I might have mentioned this again before, but in a prior thing of the class, we had this whole debate about whether or not it was GIF or GIF, because they're referred to by either one, but after further research, it is actually supposedly GIF. But nobody's gonna say anything if you pronounce it either way. Okay, so let's go through. So I think most of us probably know what this is. Good old JPEG, which is short for Joint Photographic Experts Group. So this is actually considered lossy. So now that you have those terms, hopefully you can understand what these are. I have to keep saying that, and it just makes my tongue all twisted. Anyway, lots of information is lost from the original. So the file size will be small, but you're going to lose detail. So the pros, 24-bit color with up to 16 million colors. So obviously a lot of color accommodation there. So rich color is great for photographs that need fine attention to color detail. It's the most used and most widely accepted image format. And it's compatible in most operating systems. So whether or not you're Mac, PC, Linux, anybody still uses that, it's all around there. And the cons is, of course, that it tends to discard a lot of data. And after compression, JPEG tends to create artifacts, and that's just so that's where what happens when you're losing the detail. It cannot be animated. They do not support transparency. And next we have this. And the only pro to this is that it works well with most Windows programs. You can use it as Windows wallpaper. It actually does not scale or compress well, huge files, and so this is not a web-friendly format, and no real advantage over the other ones, but because the files are large and uncompressed. It's rich in color, high in quality, simple, and compatible in all Windows OS operating systems and programs. And it's also called raster or paint images. So the files are made of millions and millions of the dots called pixels with different colors and arrangements to cut with an image or pattern. And it could be 8-bit, 16-bit, or 24-bit. When you make that image larger or smaller, you're making individual pixels larger and thus making the shapes look fuzzy and jagged. So not one of the more popular things, especially not one you're going to use for web. And the TIFF. It's easy to use with software that deals with page layout, publishing, photo manipulation, VFX, scanning, word processing, etc. It's just an overall good thing. It's flexible. It can be lossy or lossless. It's a rich format and supported by many imaging programs. It's capable of recording halftone image data with different pixel intensities. Thus, it's the perfect format for graphic storage, processing, and printing. And this is what makes that one of the superior raster image formats. It's one of the things that they recommend as a saving for as a TIFF to use in InDesign. And the GIF, short for the graphics interchange format. Here the limitation is it's an 8-bit palette, only 256 colors, so that's a pretty big limitation there. And it's lossless for images with 256 colors and below. So very, very simple graphics with this. It can support transparency. It does small animation effects, the one I'll show in an example. Lossless quality, so they contain the same amount of quality as the original, except of course now it only has 256 colors. It's great for images with limited colors or with flat regions of colors, so that's what I'm saying. If, you know, maybe logos, it's hard to actually say, but it's just, you wouldn't use it with like a rich photograph full of, you know, like a beach scene and things like that, because it only supports the 256 colors. It's the oldest format in the web, having existed since 1989. Hasn't been updated since, and sometimes the file size is larger than a PNG file. Or Bing. So yeah, there's my little GIF there, even though I have TIFF here. And actually, I took those out of order. I apologize for that. But here's the pros to using a TIFF. We'll go back in that. It's very flexible format, supports several types of compression like JPEG, LZW, zip, or no compression at all. High quality image format, all color and data information are stored. This is a real big plus because it's only for the last couple of versions of Photoshop that you can actually save a TIFF with layers. And the cons is it's a very large file size, long transfer time, huge disk space consumption, and slow loading time. So you don't usually use TIFFs for web images, but it's a primary choice for print. This is my favorite. Use this like all the time. PNG file. Stands for Portable Network Graphics. It's a standard since 1996. Specifically designed for the web. It's just improved. So if you have an image with large areas of exactly uniform color but it contains more than 256 colors, then you'd want to go with this one. The PNG over the GIF. Its strategy is similar to that of the GIF, but it supports 16 million colors, not just 256. Probably one of the things that makes it my favorite. But this is the #1 reason it makes it my favorite. It's great for transparency. So I'm going to go take this so we can go through. Let's go back out to that. Get this out of your way. And let's open up that actually. Okay, this is Illustrator. And Illustrator does let you place a raster graphic, which is what this is right here. And let me just show you. Right now this is embedded, which means that it is part of the document instead of linking. Because what you'd really rather do with raster images when you place them in like Illustrator or if you placed it in InDesign is you want to link to them, which means it's not sitting inside the document, which makes it much harder for the printer. It just links to it, and I can show you what I mean by that. Anybody does not understand that. But let's blow this up here so we can start to see that whole pixel thing happening. So this is a raster image, and like just like those images I was showing you before, you can start to see the pixelation thing happening here. I'm going to do Command 0 or Control 0 just to go and zoom back out. And let's zoom on this one. And this is the vector file. You can tell it's actually type right now, so you can actually, we could actually retype something on here. But what's great, that's why it's one of the popular things for logos, because no matter how we blow this up, we're not going to see that whole pixel thing happening. You can see you still get a smooth effect, no matter how large I go here. Okay, come back. So let's go here. Oops, should I do that? Let's bring Photoshop over. That's interesting. And let's open up the file that I used last week. See if he's open in here. Okay. So this was something I had used before. Let me reset it. And what I've done is I've taken out the background just roughly. So it's not perfect. If we zoom in on it, probably has some issues here. But just for time purposes, I just went ahead and deleted the background color. Last week we had him, he was on like an earth tone color. So I just want to show you what happens if we go ahead and save him in a variety of formats. I mean, let's go ahead and do that. So there are a couple of ways that you also go about that you can save this image. And let's go ahead and do File, Save As. And you can't see what happens because the thing is off here. But here it is. Here are, the thing that's awesome about Photoshop is it has the most formats that you can actually save in. I'll show you what happens when we save in Illustrator, and we definitely do not have this many choices. So you can see, here's our JPEG, so we can go ahead and save it as a JPEG. And let's go ahead and do that. And we'll save it to the desktop. Let's go ahead and open it. And you notice that it automatically gave it a white background because the JPEG doesn't support transparency. So that would not be my choice of how I would save this particular image. Close that. And we can also go ahead here and do the save as, and we can save him as we do the TIFF, it's going to be the same thing. It's going to have the white background. Let's see what happens if we save him as. Well, let's do the save for web for that. Well, let's go ahead and save him. PNG. Oops. Two. desktop and I'll save them. Okay. Let's go ahead and open up that one. And that's that, and you can see that it retained, because what this checkerboard is that you're seeing is represents transparency. So you can see that worked. But let's just go ahead and see over here. I'm going to select this, that's the image here. We'll close them up for a minute. And I'm going to do Command I because that's going to give me what the size of it is here. So he's 9.1 megabytes, fairly large, especially for web concerns. Now, if you're a Windows person, PC person, you could go ahead and just do the right click and get properties. And you can find that information that way. So let's go back to this here and do the difference of Save for Web. So I'm going to run out of time, so we're going to go ahead and do this real quick. Okay, so I'm looking at him at 100%. He's pretty big. So I probably wouldn't want him that big to begin with. So let's just see. We can check the image size here. Will tell you that right now he's 9 inches, 13 point that. The resolution is 300, so that's pretty high. So in this case, let's take it down to 72. The average thing for, uploading to the website, and it's going to matter just because of loading time. So I'll say okay. Okay, now he's a lot smaller. Let's look at him. That's 100% now. So now we'll go back to Save for the Web, just so you can see. Now it's defaulted to this PNG 24 because that's my saving things of choice. So it just figures that it's doing me a favor and saying, oh, this is the last thing that you were at, so you must want to be here. So let's go ahead and do that. So that's why it's gone through that. And you can see that it'll end up being 636, which is a lot better than the size that it was over there. But let's go ahead and look at the other ones here. So he doesn't have a lot of color in him, so he might actually be a good choice for this as well. Let's zoom in on it. See if we're losing. And you can also look here. You can go ahead and look at like your before and after. So here it'll show you the original, and then you can see the other different things. You can see, I can take off the transparency, I could select it. There's a whole bunch of other choices where we won't go into because it's a bit more complex than I want to deal with today, but I just want to show you that you have that variety of things. JPEG, we're not going to have the choice of whether or not there's transparency. It's not a choice. And see where it says quality? The higher the thing, the more the quality, the higher this number over here is going to be. So we're going to end up wanting to take them down. But you see what's happening there? That's what the whole artifact thing is. If you look in this picture, you can see we're starting to lose a lot of quality here. Of course, it says low, and there's no quality, so that's pretty bad. But that's what saving for a web is about. So hopefully that'll help with those. We'll go back to the other stuff when we go into here. For now, let's go into this. We're going to talk about two different things that'll really, really help you out, like with building, when you want to build an ad. There are really two core elements that apply to your designs: design elements and the principles of design. Design elements are the components that make up your design, and how you lay out those components out is all based on the principles of design. So that's the kind of thing we're going to go over now. And when you use them together, you should be able to pull together a professional piece of work. So let me go ahead and show you this. These are the kind of things that we're talking about. Like I said, they're kind of building blocks. And we start with a line. So lines help to organize information. They can direct your reader's eye. And actually that should be as one, as to the organization of the layout. They can create a mood. They can give rhythm and movement. Lines in your design can establish columns of text, connect pieces of information, create movement, define shape, call attention to a word, frame an image or a word. So here, so this poster shows I just really like this. It's just shows how if just a few strokes of a line can be used to effectively illustrate the swan. And obviously the lines do not adhere to the anatomy of a swan, but the image is still unmistakable, and the simplicity and the grace of the lines convey like a feeling of tranquility. Oh yeah, and let me just go back to, sorry, one thing that I missed. Somebody had asked a question, and the Photoshop is your native file in Photoshop. So when you're building something out and you build layers and things like that, you're going to want to save your original Photoshop document. You're going to flatten it before you save it as a JPEG or a GIF or something like that, or a TIFF. Any of those things, it's going to be flattened first. But you're always going to want your Photoshop document because that's where you play with the different layers. So we might have like a background layer, and then on top of the background we might have some type, and then we might throw in some shapes and another layer, different things. We might do a whole montage of things, combine them to do, that's more advanced again in Photoshop, but you can obviously do a collage of things, like kind of like the first slide with the woman and the keyboard and everything. So that was one thing I meant to mention, that there's a native file for that. So I also like the idea of the wavy lines to reflect the water. And just because I like to put it, this is from nhsdesigns.com. And now something a little bit more complex. So that's just one of the things about that artist, the illustrator is Vladimir Tomin. It's just fascinating to me, the detail with it, that the way people can actually make illustrations look so realistic, because that's all done. It's an all vector drawing that you're looking at here. Shapes, that's our next basic building block. So any element that gives or determines form. Shapes communicate ideas. Think about a globe. You know, a circle could just even symbolize, like a yellow circle can end up symbolizing a sun. So that kind of thing. That's how they communicate ideas. You can enhance your layout with shapes by helping to sustain interest. Use them to break up large chunks of text. Organizing and separating with them. Using them to guide your reader through your design beginning to end. So now the next thing I'm going to show you is like a total example of what not to do. I was having fun with the fact that I don't think I could have created anything more hideous. So I just want you to know that I know that ahead of time. But it's basically everything that I just showed you all thrown into one thing here. So you can see, right? Using the arrow to do the different things in text. The idea of a circle, we could put text in it. We took this other picture, I took this other picture and just put it in a round frame, used a shape to make that. So, but I am going to show you how to do the background really quick in Illustrator because it's a really fun thing, and also do the things about shapes. Show you with that because that's the favorite program to use for that. So let's go out of here for a second so you can stop looking at that hideous mess. And we'll go back here to this. And let me just see. I just want to see if I have my starting document. Okay, I have to do that. Okay. I won't worry about that now. Let's just do a new document. Just do a letter size document. So this is just a regular 8.5 by 11 size thing here. And here's the deal. This is obviously going to try to make this program is a program for lines and shapes and things like that. So it's going to try to make it as easy as possible for you. So there's a whole bunch of them to start with. And here's the cool thing. If there is this little arrow here, you get to see all the different shapes that it basically comes with, which is the rectangle, rounded, ellipse, polygon, star, flare tool. That might be one you're not as familiar with. But this thing here, it's called the tearaway thing. If I click on it, what that lets me do is take this here separately so I could go ahead and just work with it away from the panel. So any of these things can be ripped out of there if it has several different items, and you can work with it on that. But the real fun comes in really actually combining the shapes. So we can go ahead and do, and I'll show you that for when building an ad, but just you can just see there's a basic star, and it's going to go ahead and do it to whatever the colors are here. So that's kind of blah. So let's go ahead. Illustrator lets you change color of the fill and the stroke in two places, so up here and over here. So you can see if I hover over it, fill, stroke. Whichever one is in front is what I'm going to activate, or I can just go right here. This is always going to be the fill. So we can go ahead and make it pink. And I'll go ahead and take like orange or something, just the stroke. And let's make the stroke bigger just so you can see. You can do that too. And here's the trick to almost all these shapes, which is that if I click and hold, I haven't let go yet. So you can see I have a 5-pointed star. But what if I want more than that? I'm going to use my arrow key, my up arrow key, and I just keep going. So now you can see it's one of those lovely bursts that are in all those ads that scream at you like, hey, look at me, going through like that. And actually it gets better. And by the way, it'll go ahead and do whatever the last thing I've done. But if I hold down the command key and pull out now, I can get something that looks more like, you know, this whole burst thing happening. Which is also kind of a nightmare at the moment, but you can just see that there's just, you know, you're not, even though they are basic shapes, there's stuff that you can do to play with them. And of course, also we can go ahead and do the opposite thing. By the way, there's no reset tool. People have asked that before, and you can't actually reset these back. You can go ahead and change the settings on them, but you would have to know what the original settings were. So I'm going to go back down to 5, 6, 5, and now I can have starfish pretty quickly for that. And hold down the command key again, so then I'm going back to this. So you can see the reason that it is a vector program is it's just using points to make up all these shapes. This is the direct selection tool, so if like I just clicked over here, I can go ahead and delete some of these points. So again, just starting to, going through that. I'm going to go ahead and take off the stroke and just go ahead here and just show you also that you could combine them. That's where it gets fun. Let's do a couple of different shapes. Oops. It's going to change that color because I had selected. I'm going to click off now so it doesn't. Re-click on the ellipse tool, and I'll take another color. If I hold down the shift key, it constrains the circle. Wow, it's just a lovely color. Let's just change that. And that. But I just wanted to show you that we could click on both of these guys and select them, and they have a wonderful fun thing here called the Shape Builder tool. And what that does is lets me go ahead and see the arrow and see how it's shading. I've made this into one. It picks the color yellow because it'll always pick whatever the color is that's on the top. And when I talk about layers, I'm going to do that because I just want you to see. So there's two different things here. If we go to the layers palette, there is only one layer, but if you open up this layer, you can see that we have the pink path, this pink path underneath the yellow path, which is here, which is the circle. And if we wanted to change it, we could just drag that layer over on top. But if you save this as an Illustrator file or if you save it as an EPS file, you're always going to be able to go back into this and do it. But here's what I just want to show you real quick too. Here's the other fun thing, is we can make, let's do the star. The star is a more interesting thing. Let's make it blue, just not obnoxious. Okay, so there's my star. Illustrator has this great thing called symbols. So I'd like to throw that in there. You'll learn much more about this when you go into detail in your class. It's just I'm not going into a lot of detail with it, but I'm just going to show you this. There's a symbols palette. I'm just going to say, fine, I'll call it star. Say OK. And I can get rid of that now. I have this symbol selected. And there is also this little whole thing here too. Now we'll pull these out. Okay, this is all the stuff that goes with that. This is huge right now. So it's like any other brush. So I am using the bracket keys to make it smaller. And I'm going to select the star. And I don't know why it doesn't like the star. That is a symbol. Fine. I'll just take something else. Sorry. There we go. We need that first. This is going to spray us a bunch of stars. So that's what this is about. And what happens is this keeps the file size down because it's actually just using, that's what the advantage of a symbol is. And then there's all these things here that let you go ahead. We can spin some around. We can spin some that way. We can go ahead and keep going through this. We can add some color by using the stainer tool, so we can go ahead. Of course, it's mixing with the blue, so that's why it's not coming out exactly the color, because it's just putting it over it. So I'd probably start with a lighter color, but you get the idea. And you could even do transparency where you make some of them lighter. So the great thing about Illustrator is what I'm trying to say is you can probably make a background, do some work with like shapes really quickly. So that's how I ended up doing the obnoxious background that you saw before. We'll go back. Let's go talk about more stuff here. Okay, so the next thing is going to be texture. And you're looking at some samples of those there. And every designer I know loves textures. It just adds a lot more interest to your designs. So let's see. So it relates to the surface of an object, the look and the feel of it. And the difference with using it for web or versus print is that printed material is actual textile texture, while screen material is implied texture. Like you can actually get textured paper. There can actually be a physical feel to it, which obviously you can't do with something that's on your screen. But it's becoming integral to design. It's actually gone beyond being a trend. It's now a simple and effective way to add depth to websites. Um, it increases the effectiveness of websites as quality tool in the arsenal, your arsenal for as a designer, because it can guide the user's eyes and emphasize the importance of key element. It's long been like people think about if you've heard of like dirty or grunge. It's kind of been synonymous with that. Its overuse can be seen throughout the world of music group websites, and so a lot of people don't like it, but due to its kind of misuse, its benefits have been overlooked. But it can really bring things together, and I'll show you a couple examples of it. And often, like textures and patterns are spoken about interchangeably. Patterns are typically small, repeating, tileable elements, whereas textures tend to be much bigger images that don't repeat. But some textures are also patterns, just so I can confuse you some more here. So in web design, it's an effective way to add, like I said, depth to the website, guide the user's eye, and I have this here for you. So even though I just told you that, this is all the things, but I want to get to that. So texture can highlight elements such as titles, headings, icons, buttons. It draws the eye and calls to action. The main headings. It's perhaps the clearest way that the trend towards textures are catching on. So is with these two different things here, which is the idea of either having the textured background with the clean logo or having the textured logo on the clean background. So that's like two examples of this. And we've talked about some of this somewhat, and we're going to go over it again, but it's an important concept about space. And some of the stuff that we talked about today we've touched upon before, but it has to be emphasized again because it's all important to building the ad. So space is defined as the distance or area between or around things. That's not totally obvious. And when designing your layout, you have to think about how much space you want around and between each element. I think most I've gotten, from the concept I've gotten from the interaction that I've had with you guys, I can tell that you have that appreciation of more of the cleaner, simplistic um, kind of look that space affords us. So things to think about are how much space you have, how the type and images will work together, how it all looks, and again the white space. So when you have the many elements of the piece, you gotta leave some free from the type and the imagery. It's the white space. Creates the rest for the eye. It organizes what's on the page. And the placement value of the shapes of the page creates spatial relationships and focal points, which are centers of interest. So it's a concept I haven't mentioned before. That's the idea of a focal point. I'll show you a great example of a focal point with color. Just a minute. So more about space. Use a small amount of space to create ties between elements. Form positive and negative shapes with the use of color and shape. Give a layout depth by overlapping one element with another. Use a lot of white space around an element when you want to highlight it. And use large margins to help make the layout easy to follow. So try to give some space there as well. Size. And actually, I believe this is actually color. Oh, sorry guys. Been a long week. It's actually color, so ignore the word size. Make important text a different color. Use a bright color to show where to look first. Use bright colors to create excitement. We've talked a lot about color already, so I'm going through that. Repeat a color from an image and use it with corresponding type or as a background to help unify the layout. Color-coded document, such as a training manual with large amounts of text to help organize the piece, so color coding can definitely help there. And use appropriate color to help differentiate parts of a chart or graph. So now we'll go back to size. So make the most important element the largest. Bring elements forward and make them recede on the page. Give the reader a sense of scale of a photograph by using a related image. It's my two goofy businessmen here. Value. It's how light or dark an area looks. And so it's everything from dark to white, and all the shades in between have a value. What this is right here, like the lines that you're looking at though, is actually the opposite, but I have white, so 100% white, 100% black, and then I just did 8 steps in between, so you can just have it's 10% up from white to gray and so forth between if you were going to blend the colors from white to black, something I showed you before in Illustrator. And you use value to create depth and light and create a pattern, lead the eye, or emphasize. And again, sorry, we're going back to color. I'm going out of order here. And we can skip that one because it's there. Hold on a second, let me go back to it. Let me show you the color thing that I want. Let's get rid of that, it's hideous. Fun, but hideous. Anyway, this was what I want to show you as the focal point. Let's just make sure my stuff is hopefully okay after that. We should be good. Okay. So I just kind of love this. It's a really old piece. I'm guessing most of you people like may or may not have heard of Rheingold beer. So the little type, which you probably can't read from here, says refreshing, very refreshing. So they kind of play on that, but they definitely used the red as a color as a focal point in this, obviously, because it's the only color in the black and white image. And did the play on it being, a whole refreshing play on art. So it just works in a couple of cute ways. Just one of those things I've had in my collection of stuff I liked because I just think it's cute. That's the only reason it's in here. All right, let's go on to principles. Now we also touched upon this before. So I believe I think it was either class 2 or 3. I can't believe we're up to 5 already, but it was actually 2 or 3. And I brought up the concept of CRAP, the CRAP. So we're going to be doing that. And I'm just adding another one into that right now, which is balance. So balance, proximity, alignment, contrast, repetition. But if you take those out of order, you'll see it's the crap plus B, but it doesn't spell anything clever, so not much I can say about that. So when we're talking about balance, it's an equal distribution of weight, and in terms of graphics or graphic design, we're talking about visual weight. So each element on a layout has a visual weight that is determined by its size, darkness or lightness, thickness of lines. There are a whole bunch of different things you can do. Two main types are symmetrical and asymmetrical. So the balance of a piece is like the underlying structure, the core that supports the rest of the design. It's important to understand the visual weight of the elements you use so you can balance them with opposite contrasting ones. That's where, again, that term comes up again about contrast. Deep, cool colors like black, blue, or purple tend to have a stronger presence on the page than light, warm colors such as yellow and orange. some of the warmer colors that you guys talked about before. One thick line, which appears heavy within the layout, can be balanced by using several thin lines in the opposite side of the composition. Large-scale items have more visual weight on the page than smaller objects. Though if an object is overly large, it can kind of merge with the background, so just be careful with that. Detailed, complex shapes, such as a silhouette of a person, tend to overpower simpler shapes like circles or squares. And large open white space can balance a small area that is dense with objects. And the balance, by the way, should not be 50-50 in a boring mathematical sense. It's just different elements should add up to balance. So let's look at a couple of examples. So at first glance, you might wonder, how could this possibly represent, a good example of balance? But think of this design not in terms of balancing two mirrored sides, but like the symmetrical balance, but of two different elements, type and shape, offsetting each other. So the illustration on the left side is basically built of shapes, while the right side of the design is primarily type. So the two are placed in the format in such a way as to create a sense of like near perfect balance. The dark vignetted border and the tail of the cat coming right up to the edge of the cover do wonders also to help stabilize the design. So balance is the attainment of optical and psychological equilibrium in a design. People like balance. We're, creatures of symmetry and appreciate it in everything. And the design is like a real world building. It needs to be balanced or it doesn't work. Okay, here's something that I haven't really actually showed an example of yet, so I kind of wanted to throw that in here too, because part of graphic design is packaging, and I've done a lot of print and web examples, but not this. So the fine detail and the floral illustration, complex shapes on the right is well balanced by the negative space on the left. And the high value of illustration is also in balance with the low value of the brown in the negative space. The contrast and texture between the illustration and the negative space is also a form of balance. The plain area at the bottom containing the company name serves to emphasize the content there, and this use of space is pretty wise and effective, I think. Generally, we prefer visual weight to be in the lower right-hand corner. We read left to right, so we like to end on the right. So think about that kind of thing too. We also read top to bottom, so we like to end at the bottom. And the designer of this lotion package is probably well aware of how placing the visual weight at the bottom, which is asymmetrical, by the way, of the two balances out the smaller part with the flare top, which has more surface area. So the band of color provides stability to the design, while the floral illustration provides like interest and freedom. So it's another more abstract version of balance. And then we have proximity. So how objects are grouped so that their organization allows for a logical progression of ideas. Like ideas group with like ideas. And you can see here, we have the name, all the name information, while the name and the logo are together, near each other, because those work well in proximity. And of course, they're separated. So, the logo and the name of the business are separated from the other information because the two sets of things go together. So that's why they're near each other. And this was something I showed in the first class, which was just the idea of this whole thing here. Proximity is putting the like things with each other and differentiating them. So you can just see, I just took that list and ended up making it more organized. The things that were related to each other and near each other. Here's another thing I found, which was great. So there's the thing on the first one. It's much more organized than the second one on the right, where it has the actual title and things, different, all those things, all those information for each of those shows are organized together. So that's what we mean by proximity. The related information is together. So alignment, you need to be conscious of where you place your elements, like the line, the image, the type. You always find something else on the page to align with, even if the two objects are physically far away from each other. Avoid using more than one text alignment on the page, so this shows you, like, why that just isn't good. And actually, let me go back. Just want you to see it again. Go through real quick. So hopefully you can see that. And then here we have left align type does not connect to the image on the right. Our eyes are drawn in two separate directions. This is also a good thing. And I believe separate is spelled wrong there. It wasn't me. This is actually a drawing that I found that to exemplify it. So aligning the type to the right along the edges of the image creates a strong visual alignment and creates unity. So it's a good example of alignment. Bad example of typing the word separate correctly. One of my favorites, contrast. Fun, effective way to add visual interest. It's crucial to the organization of information. If two items are not exactly the same, then make them different, make them very different, because that's what contrast is all about. So some ways to create contrast. Large type with small type. An old style font with a bold sans serif font. So there's our fonts coming back into play here. Thin line with a thick line. Going back to that whole thing. Cool color with a warm color. Smooth texture with a rough texture. Horizontal element with a vertical one. Go through. So hopefully you can see there's a little bit more interest there. I kind of really like this. I think it's kind of cool, the contrast besides the shapes. I don't know, just like the whole fluid thing of this image, but you can see the contrast and just those little touches of colors stand out as well. Again, just adding a little bit more of interest. Because once the first one on the left here, we really have no contrast happening. So by putting in the color and the headlines and in the headlines and putting the black on the about the two shapes on the top and the bottom helps hopefully add just a little bit more interest to something. And also the issue and the date, moving together. And that's actually that. We're going to go into we're going to take apart this ad and go through the various ways to build it, and I'll show you that. I'm seriously going to get rid of this. It's actually, I think, making me nauseous. Go through InDesign. So this is a before thing, and I have some of the after started, but we're not going to go look at that. We're going to go ahead and take this apart in various ways. So what this is supposed to be, let's say, and again, this is just a made-up thing, but is just a card about the exhibit at a museum, and this is the list of the staff that goes through there. I literally just found this long list of people's names somewhere with a bunch of long titles, and that's what I did and copied it in here. So let's go about building this thing using some of the different things that we learned. So I'm going to, and then by doing this also, I'm going to show you, I'm going to jump to, let's do a new document. And I'm going to make it an odd size. I'm going to make it 5 inches wide, 12 inches in depth. And I'll just show you something really quick here. You can see though that this width and everything here is in picas. That's what the 51P0 and 66 whatever. And you can change this in preferences. So I can get out of this right now and do that. And we could go ahead and change the preferences, but that's a long thing and it's already quarter after, so I won't go into it. But what I will tell you is you don't have to be any kind of math genius in any of these programs. So this works in all of them. I can just type on top of this and just say 5 inches for the width, tab to the next one. So it automatically did the math for me. And I'll go ahead and type in 12 inches. I'll say okay. And it's put a margin on it. I don't even want the margin. So I'm going to go ahead, just do that one more time. So 5 inches, and I can also type in 5 inches. Same thing, by the way. 12 IN, I can do that. And I'm going to just change this to 0 because it's distracting to me and I don't want a margin for this particular thing, just for us playing. All right, so what you're looking at here now is an odd size document. It's not an 8.5 by 11. It's not a regular page. It's actually the size of my final product. So what I want to do, so I'm going to go to Photoshop first of all. And I've done this earlier so I can save some time for us. And we don't need him anymore. So I'm going to go over to, hopefully it's still here, swatches. Okay, so earlier what I did is I brought the statue that, let's go back over here so you can see it. I brought that in here so I can pick up like one of the colors, the taupe. And that's this color right here. So what I've done is I've just gone ahead and opened the swatches palette and it automatically gives me this little eyedropper. And I went ahead and named it ahead of time and I called it taupe. I'm going to double click on it and I could actually just copy this number here. This is a hexadecimal color. This is what the colors that you, these numbers were what you work with when you work with web design. And I'm just going to copy it. Just say okay. And I could go over to Illustrator, do a new document, just say whatever, but actually let's make sure it's bigger for a weird size thing. So I'll just choose tabloid this time and say okay. And I can go ahead, double click on this, and I could go ahead and paste the same color in. And now I have that same color. And what I've done is, let me go ahead and reset this so you could see. I'll pull this out. I literally took, there's a couple ways you can do this, but I literally dragged this square over onto these little things here. Let me make this bigger. You can actually do that. Oh no, I thought I wanted large swatches. See, we can use larger thumbnails, so you guys don't have to like go blind squinting at the screen to see this. And anyway, now what I can do is, let's go back to what I was starting to show you before. I want to end up doing this thing as rounded edges to add a little bit of more of interest. So I can go ahead and make sure that and again, now this is in points and I don't care about that either because that does nothing for me. I'm going to say I want a 1/4 of an inch. Actually, all I care about is the corner radius. And I want that to be a 1/4 of an inch. And you'll see what that is in a minute. So I can say 0.25 inches and say okay. And it went through that. make this a lot more. And I could also go ahead and type in the thing. So let's go ahead and type in 5 inches because I want it to be 5 inches wide as our other document. And let's say, I don't know, 1.5 inches. It's okay to start with. And 0.25 for a 1/4 inch thing through there. And I'll click OK and you can start to see what's going on here. Let's go ahead and do the information so you can see. And I'm going to go ahead and change my preferences really, really quick to inches. So, okay, so then now you can see that, and we'll zoom in on it more, that it is a 5-inch wide thing. Now I also don't want the rounded corners on the bottom. So here's like a case of why would I, go ahead and combine the shapes. I can go ahead and get a rectangle tool. Oh, and by the way, I also don't want the stroke. So I'm hitting my X key, which brings the stroke to the front. Hitting my backslash key, which makes it's a shortcut to take away the stroke. So now I just have this tote box. And I'm going to go ahead and do this here. And it is actually 5 inches. I can tell that because it's highlighted by the blue box, and it shows me that in my info palette. And if I want to also, I can go ahead and open up the alignment tool. And you have various choices with how you want to do alignment in this. Let me show the options. So I can say align to selection, which is good. That's where it is now. And just make sure that they're both to the left edges. And they are. And then instead of keeping these as 2 shapes, I'm going to select them both. Use that shape builder tool I showed you earlier. And now I have this as one piece. So now I can go ahead, and this is what I'm saying, I jump back and forth here. So here's like InDesign. Here's my new one. Let's go ahead and draw a box to be my frame. And draw it out. And again, I could do the same thing up here. And in this case, and I am definitely going to go ahead and do this again. Preferences, general units and increments. And inches. I'm just going to say that. Say okay. So then now I can see more. This is a great thing too. This little brown box here gives me a hint. So you can see I'm at the width of 5 inches. And I can take it down here just to show you different ways. And bam, 12. Now if I want to make sure, I have my alignment tool thing open here, and I have a choice of aligning to the page. So I can go ahead and say align on the left and align on the top to make sure that that's perfectly like that. And then we're going to do an effect here. And corner options. And I'm going to you get a choice of a whole bunch of different fancy bevel, inset, inverse, rounded. I'm going to choose rounded. And I'm going to do the same thing again, whereas I'm going to put in 1/4 inch. So it matches up with the roundness that I created in Illustrator. Let me zoom in so you can see. And in fact, just for now, I'll also let's give it a stroke. Just so you can see. There you go. See, so let me move it out of the way so you can see that I've done the rounded top. So I now I can go back here and I can literally just use, this is the black tool, arrow tool is the selection tool. I can select it and I can copy it and I can paste it. And again, I can do the same thing. Instead of guessing, I can just go align and align. And I know that it's back on the top of the page. And the other really cool thing is that I can still edit this thing even though now I've brought this shape from Illustrator into InDesign. So if I wanted to go ahead, and I could just go ahead and select, I'm going to work like this. Let me just show you. See, so I can bring this up more if I end up deciding I want it that way. I can make it bigger, whatever I want. But you can just see we made it that one shape, and now we can do whatever we want with it. All right, I'm going to stop in case anybody has any questions, and I'll just show you. And actually, I'm going to change it even after that. But we are going to work towards this, but it's not even completely finished yet. So we're going to work towards just, hopefully making this thing a little bit more interesting from what it is. So just to give you a teaser for next week, we'll start with that. We'll start with more of the going over all those print designs. I also have a like a fake newsletter that I put together in InDesign that shows everything also, like the idea of using the color that matches the photo and the shapes and the lines and all the things that I talked about to exemplify it. Hopefully in a much prettier way than my crazy circle shape thing, but that was just being goofy. And as you can tell, I was probably obviously really tired when I was doing that because some of my slides were out of order, and I apologize for that. So does anybody have any questions? I'll be happy to hang out for a few minutes if you do, since I didn't really leave a lot of time for it. Let's see what next week's assignment is. Okay. So interesting. So far I can't see it. I always have a hard time finding this thing. Anyway, you guys are all had at this now. You seem to know what it is, and great job on the pictures. I appreciate you all indulging me and talking for a while as well. Hope you enjoyed some kind of more interaction. Let me undo it. I can unmute everybody. All right, everybody's unmuted, just in case. Who's that? So weird. If not, have a great week, guys.
All right, you too.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.